Welcome, everyone, to the Union Federation podcast, where we discuss both Star Trek and the Orville here on the Fandom Podcast Network. My name is Kevin. I'm going to be your captain. And today's show is Union Federation episode 208, Star Trek Section 31, spoiler review and discussion. I'd like to introduce my crew here to the Union Federation Starship. And with me, as always, is my co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network, Mr. Kyle Wagner. What's going on, buddy?
I am doing well. Just remember, I am the suit. The suit is me.
You're one. Do you have like a little creature like in your head? Is that,
That's when I do the other podcasts on the network. I just leave that one on autopilot.
All right. And of course, I'd like to welcome our first officer and counselor and the founder of the BQN, Amy Nelson. How are you?
Hello. Doing very, very well. Thank you.
All right. Well,
it's another good Amy Nelson hair day today.
It is. All right. Of course, we are discussing the new movie on Paramount Plus, the new Star Trek movie, Section 31. We're going to get in full spoilers and such. But we did want to tease a few things, first of all, here on Union Federation. And recently, we just wrapped up Season 5, this final Season 2 of Star Trek Lower Decks. And that was a lot of fun. And then previously, we had a lot of fun. We had a limited podcast series where we talked about Star Trek The Next Generation, every 2-part episode reviewed. And coming up, we're excited about this. We're going to return to the Orville, USS Orville crew profiles. We're going to have an episode each discussing the main crew members of the Orville and talking about, we're going to narrow it down to 2 episodes that we feel that define these characters. And it was good character creation and character development of these characters. And the first one we're going to be talking about is Lieutenant Alara Kitan. So make sure you stay tuned for that. We're very excited for that. But we are, of course, discussing Section 31, the new movie. Let's get into it. All right, this is our first away mission here. Spoiler alert, of course, here. Now, Amy, I did warn you, we had a very, 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 very long, extensive log synopsis for this episode. Sorry, I couldn't get through that without laughing. No, it's the shortest one ever. It was the only one that I could find around the internet. So go ahead and give us the Admiral's Log episode synopsis. You sure you got this?
Yeah, make sure you're seated. It's going to take a minute or a half a minute. Here we go. In Star Trek Section 31, Emperor Philippa Georgiou joins a secret division of Starfleet tasked with protecting the United Federation of Planets and must face the sins of her past.
Now, normally I go through a plethora of slides before you finish the synopsis, but I haven't even got through the end of the slides here. So, so we'll show more of those pictures and such here. Now, before we get your first reactions, I did want to kind of go over the cast rundown. So maybe actually we can take turns reading these guys just to kind of get people familiar with the characters as we refer to them here. And this will take up some time, too, as we show some of the slides and everything. And I thought we'd start with you, Amy, talk about Michelle Yeoh as Philippa Georgiou.
Right. Well, she's the leader of the Terran Empire in the Mirror Universe who has traveled to the Prime Universe and joined Starfleet. Yeoh hoped the character would not lose her edge as Emperor Georgiou, despite learning lessons about compassion and humanity during her time on Star Trek Discovery. Georgiou left the series and traveled to a different point in the Star Trek timeline, where she is the owner of the Baram, a nightclub outside Federation space. Miku Martineau portrays a young Georgiou. I thought she did a great job, too.
Yeah. Next one is Omari Hardwick as Alok, a Section 31 agent who is a strategic mastermind with a lot of mental issues. Alok wants Georgiou to pay for her past while joining his team for a covert mission.
Sam Richardson as Quasi, a Section 31 agent who is disinterested in the delusion of utopia. Quasi is a chameleoid, the shape-shifting alien species introduced in the film Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country.
I think it's Cameloid. Is that how they do it?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Amy.
All right. Well, Robert Kaczynski as Zeph, also a Section 31 agent who lives and works in a mechanical exoskeleton. Zeph is loyal to Alok.
Casey.
Is it Alok?
Alok, maybe, yeah.
Okay, I think so.
Casey Roll. Casey is spelled Kacey, as Rachel Garrett, the future captain of the USS Enterprise C, who represents Starfleet on the Section 31 team.
You've got Sven Rygrok as Fuzz, a Section 31 agent described as a fun-loving guy with an anger management problem.
Yes. Now, James Hiroki Lau as San. Do apologize. I'm sure I butchered that. But San, Georgiou's former lover and rival for the Terran throne, who she enslaved on her ascension. James Huang plays a young San.
Humberly Gonzalez as Mel, a Section 31 agent who uses her irresistible magnetism to the division's benefit, unlike other Deltans in Starfleet who take an oath of celibacy.
And finally, Joe Pingu as Dadano.
All right, guys. So let's go. Let's get your first reactions here to Section 31, the first movie to come out in a while since Star Trek Beyond here on Paramount Plus. Amy, let's start with you.
All righty. Listeners, if you really want my true first reaction, please go listen to All Good Things. I have seen it once, and those are my first reactions. I have since seen it again, and my second rewatch, I really enjoyed the movie. I knew what was coming. I knew the storyline, so I could focus more on like what I feel Trek philosophy is and like why I enjoy Star Trek. And I was able to pick out some Trek threads and themes that I enjoyed. So it was pretty harsh first go around, but the second time I'm really enjoying it. And I will watch it again. To be honest.
Gotcha. Okay. So I'm getting, since I had not listened to that podcast, I'm getting it was in more of a negative review as opposed to now you have more of a positive outlook on it.
Yeah, there were a lot of issues that I still have, but I'm just more forgiving now that I'm understanding maybe what it was trying to do. It is a hot mess. Like the first time around, I didn't know if I was watching a game or there were so many different like, oh, this is Hunger Games. Oh, this reminds me of Men in Black. Like I was getting so much from everywhere else that I was like, is this even Star Trek? It was, yeah. I was confused the first time around.
Kyle, what is your first reactions to Section 31?
So upon my first viewing of Section 31 and having some time to kind of process it all, the good things about Section 31, I like the characters. I think there's some very interesting characters that I hope we see again in the Star Trek universe. There's a strong concept there, but the problem with Section 31 itself as a movie is, and Amy kind of hit on it, it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. First it was Hunger Games, then it was Mission Impossible, then it was Men in Black, then it was something out of Star Trek. It felt like, and it really honestly felt like, okay, this was like a premiere full 2-part episode that we just combined into a movie or something. It really had that feeling to it. Michelle Yeoh is a force of nature. She is phenomenal. Always is Philippa Georgiou. But to me, this movie really lacked a quality villain, and I really just think it lacked direction. Mm. And it's a shame because I really think there's a baseline for some really fun ideas with these characters and with the idea of Section 31. I'll be honest with you, this is not what I was expecting from a Section 31 film. And I think that was a big part of it too. But there's enough here that I would be intrigued to see what they could do with it more, but it needs to be refined and it needs a little work. As far as this movie goes on a standalone, Kevin, you talked about it on Culture Clash when we talked about this briefly. I would call this a streamer. It's not a horrible film, but it doesn't feel completely Star Trek to me either. It feels like a hodgepodge of things put together.
Yeah, that's my big complaint about this film is it didn't feel like Star Trek to me. It mentioned Star Trek things, and it was not what I wanted from a Section 31 movie. You know, I wanted stuff that we'd seen in Deep Space Nine and other mentions of it, and I just feel like that it lost itself. It had an idea that it wanted to do, but I don't think it really looked at the big picture and how Section 31 is supposed to scare you. This didn't scare me. You know, this was basically a Mission Impossible attempt in space. You know, and you know, I get having the different characters, and it was interesting the type of characters that they chose. I'm not sure about the little robot guy inside the head. That was Men in Black, like everyone says, and that was just getting comical for me. I love the best thing about it, to be honest with you, was the mention and the actress who played Rachel Garrett. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But my biggest issue with this film. It felt like it was on a tight budget, to be honest with you. It felt like it was on a TV episode budget, just kind of spread out a little bit, because the thing that I'm noticing with the Star Trek, especially Discovery, is that you have this enclosed set studio, and then you have this one outside set location right outside Toronto. And all they have to do is just move a couple things around, and then it's another alien planet. And it feels very confined. You know, when you look at Star Trek movies, they're out on locations, you know, and their sets feel like you're in other planets and other locations. But like the scenes all take place either, you know, on a ship or in this casino, and that's in this one outside limited location. And you could just tell that they were like pinching the purses on this. You know, maybe they spent more money on the costumes and maybe Michelle Yeoh's salary. I don't know, but it did not feel like, this doesn't feel like a movie to me, to be honest with you. This feels like an extended episode of you know, I guess Discovery. Amy, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was wondering, because this idea has been floating. I feel like we've heard about this for at least a couple years. Was it going to be a limited mini?
It was going to be a series. Yeah.
So that's why I feel like it's got chopped up into pieces and then put back together. Because you're right, it is very choppy. It's missing things, but then it's too bunk on the head, where it's like, why are you telling me this? Like, I don't like, why are we getting these little transmissions and breaking it into, okay, this is part 1, this is part 2, now we're doing this. And I'm like, you don't need to tell me that. I'm getting the flow by watching it. So it seemed very choppy. And I wonder if it was because it was going to be a mini series. And so I do like to sort of call this, for sure, made for TV movie. I'm not putting it in a movie category. This is not a movie to me. I agree with you. This is a made for TV movie, which is completely different.
It's a made for home movie. It's not a made for seeing in a theater movie. Yeah, Kyle, go ahead.
Well, a couple of things. I think we all are in that agreement with it. This feels like it's a movie pilot, and it feels like, yes, we were starting this off as a series. We changed halfway. We're making it a movie. We give it a little bit more budget, but not enough to make it really tell the difference. I really kind of feel like this was an aspect too of everything that had been going on with Paramount and the sale of Star Trek and everything that was going on there. This was all being talked about and being made while that was going on. And I think they felt like, okay, then Michelle Yeoh wins her Oscar. And I felt like they have to do something with her. We have this Oscar-winning actress riding high right now. We got to do something with her. And then you have this. So it just feels, again, I come back to it. This feels like it was a 2 or 3 part first 3 episodes of a season that they just kind of cut together, and or like a made for TV movie pilot. And it really does. Discovery had at times better effects than what this had. This had some very beautiful effects at times, but yeah, it just, again, it was just like they were going in one direction and then they changed it and it kept getting changed on them and they couldn't make up their mind, and reflects in how the story works out, because it feels like there's parts of the story that feel like they were going to be overarching through a season, not in a movie.
My biggest issue too is like, I'm sorry, but Section 31 is Starfleet, right? It's the dark side of Starfleet. It's the black ops of Starfleet. I get no Starfleet out of any of these characters other than maybe Rachel Garrett. You know, and the guy in the exoskeleton suit, that was comically dumb. Mm-hmm. You know, that guy didn't feel like Starfleet. You know, we didn't get any Starfleet looking characters at all. It was like an amalgamation of all these aliens with weird little idiosyncrasies that maybe helped the situation or did not. You know, like I said, it was like a really bad attempt of Star Wars, Mission Impossible, whatever, you know, and that's where it kind of lost itself. And I was trying to figure out, like, what was I watching here? You know, I mean, obviously they let Michelle Yeoh cook it as her character. And, you know, what we saw through her arc in Star Trek Discovery, you know, we find out how bad of a person she was. We'll get into that with the MacGuffin and such. But yeah, I was just kind of getting to a point to where, like, you know, is this Star Trek? You know, so anyway, now I don't know if you guys know this, but this is getting some really bad reviews. Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 23%, a 4.5 out of 10. Metacritic gives it a 36 out of 100. Albert Lloyd of Los Angeles Times noted that the result was hurt by a stilted transition to a film rather than a series, with the film being an overlong pilot episode using setups that require an immediate next episode rather than hoping for a future film. Mm-hmm. Daniel Cooper called the film unwatchably bad. Gizmodo's Jane Whitbrook called it a poor action movie with awkward and jarring pacing. And I like to go over to the guys at Trek Core here, and I'm looking at the listing of their articles. Spoiler review: Star Trek can make some great TV movies. Section 31 isn't one of them. Star Trek 31 is a dreary, unfortunate misfire, our spoiler-free review. And then I went over to the user reviews for IMDb, and I'm just going to read the titles. Please stop doing Star Trek. Worst Star Trek movie ever. Awful, but at least it's short. Not Star Trek. 1 out of 10 on that one. Worst Ocean's 11 sequel ever. This could be deleted from Paramount Plus and canon. One guy listed it. Barf. Not Trek, not even Section 31. Comments I thought of too. Nobody asked for this movie and they were right not to. Disappointed. Absolute rubbish. Only one positive one I've been sliding here is fun space adventure. One said, nope, just nope. Worst Star Trek movie ever. So anyway, you guys see where I'm going at with this here. It is not getting good reviews. And I'm looking at some of our peers, Star Trek podcasting, guys at Trek Geeks hated this movie. You know, I haven't heard Norm's take on this. I don't know if he's seen it yet. Kind of curious to see what he thinks. Mm-hmm. But even our peers aren't liking it too, people. Unfortunately, I'm kind of curious what Haley thought, but she wasn't feeling well enough to come on here.
I will say on Blue Sky, I did ask the question, and my very first response was a yep, they liked it. I'm like, okay, great.
Who said that?
Oh, one of the people in Blue Sky.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, there's one. Okay.
Yep, there's one.
Are you surprised by this, Amy?
No, because like I said, my first watch, I was completely confused, as all the reviews said, and it didn't know what it was. So it's not surprising. I feel bad because I believe that those who wrote it, and they are big Star Trek people. Like, you look at the credits and you're like, I know that name. Like, these are people who have given us right now our current Star Trek. And so I'm just like, they didn't do it on purpose. They were trying their best. So I feel bad that it was such a flop. And I really am wondering why the script wasn't better. You know, why the story wasn't better.
I've been seeing like, okay, so we're looking at the showrunners like Star Trek Picard, the final season. That got a good showrunner there because, he understood Trek basically to a certain degree. He's a big fan. And Strange New Worlds is getting good reviews. So is Lower Decks. Discovery Split. Is this
Prodigy got good reviews?
Yeah, Prodigy did, yes. Yeah. Some people want to blame Alex Kurtzman. I don't know where to put the blame on this, but I don't know. I don't know what they're trying to do with this, but we'll get into. Kyle, did you have a comment?
I just want to come back to the fact. I think one of the biggest things that happened here was they wanted to do this show. They wanted to, and then I think Michelle Yeoh blows up. I think what the politics and the sale of Paramount and everything that was happening there, this show got caught up in all of that. And they were at this point, they were committed to doing something, and they probably didn't want to waste it away like what Warner Brothers did with several of their features when they got sold. I think it just this really was an aspect of just throw together what you've got, make something out of it, and get it out there. And it's a shame because, like I said, there's potential there. But I think that's really what ended up happening here. I think it was more politics and business that affected this project more than anything else.
It's possible, yeah. Well, in a movie like this, obviously you want to have a good villain, and we forget that the Terran Empire version of Philippa is a villain. We see her beginning. She kills her family, and and disfigures the person that she apparently cares for, and that comes back to haunt her. But there's always got to be a weapon MacGuffin. And I want to touch on that real quick, guys, is the godsend, the weapon MacGuffin that we have here. It was never stated what is used to power the godsend, only that its destructive force was power enough to affect an entire quadrant. The only thing previously seen in Star Trek with that level of destructive force that could fit in such a small device is the Omega molecule, first seen on the season 4 Voyager episode, The Omega Directive in 1998. Omega is a highly unstable molecule, that most powerful substance known to exist, with each molecule containing the same amount of energy as a warp core. Federation cosmologists theorized Omega once existed in nature for an infinitesimal period of time as the instant of the Big Bang, acting as a primal source of energy for the formation of the universe. So, guys, this was used as the MacGuffin here, and also used to the sins of her past come to haunt her, which is this device here that she, if I remember correctly, guys, after seeing this movie twice, it was created as kind of a, I get it my way or no one gets anything and I can destroy all of you type of situation. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, it's like the nuclear bomb. Like, you're not going to come near us because I can drop a bomb on you. Yeah.
What were your thoughts of this MacGuffin weapon here, that they went with this type of thing that is of Georgiou's past, and now it's threatening the future now? What do you think of this, Amy?
Yeah, how much do you want to know about the device? It is just, I don't know what MacGuffin, I don't know what that means, the weapon MacGuffin. What's a MacGuffin?
A MacGuffin is something within a film that is where the plot kind of follows this device or this thing. And, it's usually something throughout the film that is continuous and is mentioned and is something. And that's basically what this is, So,
oh, okay. Yeah. It didn't explain what it was, like how, like you said, the energy source. So it's just this pretty cool device, and it has mass destruction. What more do you need to know, or do we need to know more? So I'm sort of teeter-tottering on, it's cool, but I have no idea why it works. I have no idea what its function and why it spins. And if she's the only one who can activate it or deactivate it, then why is San even wanting it? If he, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
I thought,
there's
did
a
we
lot
need
of
it?
holes with it.
Did we need it? I mean, we could have just had the revenge from, the guy that came back to try to kill her, I don't know. Kyle, what do you think?
They needed something. They needed something to be the MacGuffin, like you said, Kevin. Again, but it goes into what, to me, it was weak. It was like, okay, we've got this. It can destroy half the universe, but it wasn't even. It's like everything else. It was a bad villain. It was a bad MacGuffin. It was a very paint. It's this movie. It's paint by numbers, and this MacGuffin was just as much paint by numbers. It wasn't even that interesting. They didn't really even give you the full scope of what it could do, like in an image or anything. Just said, "Oh, it can do this."
Mm-hmm.
It was scary enough that after it had gotten built, she ordered it destroyed. So, which didn't seem like a Georgiou move at the time,
Right.
with a Terran Empire version of her. She creates it, but then, and then they talk about, oh, well, all the engineers who created it killed themselves after they finished it. It's like they put all this really heavy doom on it,
Mm-hmm.
but then they never followed up on it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you never felt a threat from this device. You really didn't.
Right.
Yeah, you felt more of a threat from, what's his name?
I felt more of a threat from the guy who was the mole than anybody else in this movie.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we have some Star Trek trivia and some Easter eggs to get to here. All right. As alluded to earlier, the first Star Trek film in 9 years since the release of Star Trek Beyond, 2016. I almost don't want to count it as a movie.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah.
This is a film by definition only.
Yeah, just because we're watching it at home, it's not the same.
I think the more appropriate term would be, because we had short treks. This is a long trek.
There you go. I love that, Amy. It's
Right?
a long trek
because it's not a movie.
Oh my God, that's funny. I love that.
Now, in March 2024, last year, Michelle Yeoh said she was open to making a sequel if the first film was successful. In October 2024, director Olatunde said the door is wide open for more Section 31 stories to be told after the film's release.
Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen.
I think it really would have done better as a limited miniseries.
They should have made this a 6-episode miniseries and done that. And it's a shame too, because like I said, there's actually some interesting characters I thought out of this. It would, but that like I said, I hope they find a way to use them again. But yeah, the Section 31 concept, I think this film was DOA. I really do. I think they were just get it out and be done with it.
Kyle, you want to give us the next bit of trivia there?
Yeah, the character Rachel Garrett, played by Casey Roll, first appeared in the third season episode Yesterday's Enterprise in 1990 as captain of the USS Enterprise C.
Can I just say this is the best part of the movie for me? I love seeing young Rachel Garrett. That she looked cute too. That she was badass. I love that we get a backstory here.
They got a great actor she looks like her.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. All right. Next we have here, guys, we have Georgiou's assistant Virgil in the first bar scene is from the planet Chiron, which is from the TOS episode Let That Be Your Last Battlefield from 1969. It can be inferred that he was from the planet's ruling class, that he is black on the right side, which is the same as Frank Gorshin's character, Commissioner Bell. Is that what it is, Bell? I think it is. I got a picture of Frank Gorshin's character there. Frank Gorshin also played the Riddler in the Batman TV series. People know that as well. All right, Amy, get us the next one.
All right. Well, Emperor Georgiou's full title: Her Most Imperial Majesty, Mother of the Fatherland, Overlord of Vulcan, Dominus of Kronos, Regina Andor, Philippa Georgiou Augustus Laponius Centaurus. Oh, Dominus is Latin for Lord or Master. Regina is Queen. Augustus can be translated as majestic, venerable, or great. Lapidus was a Roman surname derived from the Latin word Laponius, meaning made of stone or stony, and was used to refer to a leader or general considered indestructible from being undefeated in combat or war. Good. I like that.
There's a little bit more there.
Oh, so a literal translation of Philippa's title would be Her Most Imperial Majesty, Mother of the Fatherland, Overlord of Vulcan, Master of Kronos, Queen of Andor, Philippa Georgiou, the Great Indestructible Leader of the Century.
Queen of Andor. Kyle, there you go. A little Star Wars reference there.
There we go.
Get us the next one, Kyle.
So, as we've talked about, was originally planned as a television series, but after Michelle Yeoh's Oscar win, it was redeveloped into a television movie. In other words, we can't afford Michelle Yeoh at her new price point.
Okay, so is that what happened, you think? Do you think that, like, okay, now that she's an Oscar winner, they can't afford to pay her for an ongoing TV series? Or did she not want to do a TV series? She just says, look, maybe she had some contractual obligation to do some more. She signed on for, so they decide, well, let's just go ahead and do a movie, see what happens, and then we'll go from there.
I think that's a part of it, because I think that's why she left Discovery when she did. Because I honestly think if they would have had their way, she would have been through that entire season of Discovery and not left when she did. But she had other commitments, and I think her winning the Oscar made her schedule that much more busy. Her demand has been sky high. She's been in so many things since, and I mean, let's be honest with her. That movie was a phenomenon. Whether you liked it or not, a lot of people really loved that movie, and it cleaned up at the Oscars that year, and
all the lead actors won Oscars, including Key. He won one too. Yeah.
And she's finally getting the love that she deserves, but without any question from the mainstream fandom now. But yeah, I think it's just her schedule got busier, and she's on to bigger and better things. And again, I think she likes playing the character, but I don't think she wanted to commit to a TV series.
Yeah, she really does. Did you hear her on the, promotion circuit when she went to Colbert, or she went to The View and Whoopi gave her a little message and stuff, and you can see she loves playing Philippa Georgiou. And in this long Trek made for TV movie, how she gets into Georgiou is delicious. Michelle Yeoh really does, I feel, or the best actress ever, that she enjoys this character. She enjoys, like, you see what she's doing with her hands and, this evil, she's the villain, type of thing. And so, yeah, I think she really did want to do this, but yeah, her demand just skyrocketed.
Yeah. I gotta say though, the one other thing I did like about this film, which wasn't a lot, was her costumes. Her costumes were phenomenal at all points. So yeah,
Gershwa Phillips, amazing. Yeah, so glad to have her. And I think Gersha loves dressing Michelle Yeoh, like
she's good,
and Emperor Georgiou.
Sure.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, the next one I have here is Mel is the first appearance of a Deltan since Lieutenant Ilya in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, 1979. Quasi is the first Cameloid to be seen since Martia from Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country. I also remember what was the actress's name that played Ilya, Kyle? Because she was also
in Megaforce.
Persha Lambada. Yeah, she's also in Megaforce. Yeah, one of our favorite films. So yeah. And then Iman played Martia. Iman, of course, also was married to David Bowie. So there you go. All right, we have one last one there, Amy. You want to? And this was one of my biggest pet peeves, guys. I'll tell you.
Well, this now is the only movie in Star Trek franchise without a Starfleet officer in uniform, and the only movie in Star Trek franchise to feature no Federation starships.
This is where I'm flabbergasted by, like, the set decorators, designers. Like, we need to show Star Trek in this somewhere. not just mention Star Trek shit. Let's actually show Star Trek. Let's remind people that we're in that world. How does that get by you? I just don't get it.
The fact we didn't see one Federation ship in this entire...
Well, because they were on the boundaries. Like, they were on the outside of Federation space. They could not cross. That's the whole Section 31 of it is we are going undercover because we signed a treaty. So Starfleet is knowingly breaking a treaty by sending in operatives over that line.
There should have been a scene at Starfleet headquarters where they're kind of setting this up, and they're in a meeting and you see, the Golden Gate Bridge and Starfleet coming. There should have been something that just tied to it to make it like let you know that this is a Star Trek movie. We need to show Star Trek-y stuff. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into our next away mission here. This is our main episode discussion, and I got a few topics that I'd like to bring up here. And our topic number one, guys, is and I was kind of curious and a little confused about this, but I found an article here that helps here at ScreenRant.com. Star Trek Section 31's exact star date explained. Section 31 is smack dab in the middle of Star Trek's Lost era. Section 31 established that its main story takes place on stardate 1292.4 on the Gregorian calendar that converts to April 17th, 2324. By the way, I would really love it going forward, Star Trek, that you actually use the regular calendar in little parentheses, kind of like when someone's speaking in another language and they give you the subtitles of what they're saying. I don't know Star Trek star dates at all. Please give me this Gregorian calendar for us Star Trek for dummies, please, going forward. You are not impressing me by putting these random numbers out there that probably mean something, but I don't know anyone else who knows these by heart.
Oh, have you not met my co-host, Kelvin?
I have not. If that's his special power, by all means.
Yes. And he's like doing all the math and like, this is, according with Rachel Garrett and yeah. And he knows like the dates of when Deep Space Nine is like it's bizarro, but I agree with you for us, Stardate dummies. Is it going to hurt anything? Is it really?
I shared a meme with that translation and it was great. Anyway, this means Section 31 long treks, is that what we're calling it, is set 40 years before Star Trek The Next Generation, which begins in 2364 with its 2-hour premiere encounter at Farpoint. Star Trek Section 31 is also the first full-length Star Trek adventure set in 24th century Lost era, which TNG has only referenced a handful of times with flashbacks and in the Star Trek Next Generation Classic Season 3 episode, Yesterday's Enterprise. However, Star Trek Section 31 also contains flashbacks to the mirror universe of the early 23rd century. Given that Star Trek Discovery establishes that Emperor Georgiou lost control of the Terran Empire and jumped to the Prime Universe in 2257. Star Trek Section 31 flashbacks is how the young Philippa Georgiou became Emperor takes place sometime in 2210s or early 2220s if Georgiou is in her 50s as an adult and young Philippa is in her late teens. So, guys, I wanted to ask you about that. Did you have any issues figuring out exactly when this took place? Because I did. I had to go find this article to figure that out. Maybe I'm Star Trek dumb. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't know when this was. I mean, we knew with Rachel Garrett, sort of Enterprise C. That was as good as I got, as I could do
Kyle,
for myself.
Did you have an idea at all? Or did you just find out right now?
Yeah, that's part of the problem with Georgiou too. Is she's bounced over time so much now.
I know, right? It is confusing.
Yeah.
Where the hell has she been, and where is she?
Exactly what year did she appear at after she went through that portal in Discovery? That's we still don't know. The impression I got was like, they're sending her back to the time right around when Discovery went through the time travel, but obviously not.
How did she get a job overseeing a casino? It's fascinating. So the bigger
she's
question,
Georgiou. She doesn't matter. You don't need a story for that one.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I do have a question that sort of goes along with this timeline. And then going back to the device, the weapon. So at the very end, they got the device and they closed the thing. And the device is supposed to get rid of a quadrant. Okay. Now, if the device is going through to the Terran Empire where it came from, would the Terran Empire be destroyed? But it can't be because we see it in Deep Space Nine.
I think
right now.
I think the aspect was that the device goes off as it's going through the portal, so the portal is what gets destroyed.
Not the other side. Okay, I'll put that in my head canon.
Okay, so Amy, maybe you can go with me on this this concept that I have. So when we look at Star Trek timeline, we kind of gravitate towards what was our core Star Trek, right? And I would believe, Amy, that you and I feel that TNG is our core Star Trek. And we look at the original Star Trek TOS as like the prequels, and then anything after that is like, in Star Wars term, the sequel trilogy and stuff like that, right? Deep Space Nine, Voyager. So with that said, and I love the fact here is that where is Star Trek Jean-Luc Picard during Section 31? Jean-Luc Picard is arguably the most important Starfleet character of the 21st century. Star Trek and the future of Captain of the Enterprise is definitely alive during Star Trek Section 31. Jean-Luc Picard was born in 2305 and he joined Starfleet in 2323 to pursue his dream of exploring the stars and to escape the childhood trauma of his broken home as established in Star Trek Picard Season 2. In Star Trek Section 31's 23-24 timeframe, Jean-Luc Picard is a 19-year-old sophomore at Starfleet Academy, probably getting ready to fight, what was the name of that alien that stabbed him?
The Nausicaans.
Nausicaan, thank you.
Dom Jot.
Dom Jot, yes, thank you. So anyway, that's where that kind of centers our timeline for me anyway. It puts me in the perspective of when this takes place.
That's great. I like that connection there.
We revolve around. To me, I revolve whatever happened before TNG and what happened after TNG. So that's goes here. All right, guys. The topic I really want to talk about here, because this to me was probably the best thing about this series, is Rachel Garrett here, and it was really nice to see a younger version of her that we get reference to, of course, later on in yesterday's Enterprise here. Rounding out the main cast is Casey Roll as Rachel Garrett, a young Starfleet officer assigned to ALOC's team for oversight purposes. Despite official knowledge of the division's existence being classified, Garrett has previously appeared in Star Trek before in the Next Generation episode Yesterday's Enterprise, where she was played by Trisha O'Neill and was captain of the USS Enterprise C until its destruction, defending the Klingon outpost from Romulan forces in 2344. She definitely felt Starfleet, even though she didn't look Starfleet. She felt Starfleet, especially when she was talking about we don't assassinate people, being part of the Federation. But Amy, I want to get your thoughts on Rachel Garrett.
This character, I feel, was my favorite. Love Michelle Yeoh. But for me to get the backstory of Captain Garrett that we see and love that episode of Yesterday's Enterprise and her passion of being a captain and caring about her crew. And she's in the medical bay. I'm talking Yesterday's Enterprise. Get me out there, and she died on the bridge. That's where, assuming. So to get this backstory and to have her a little rough of this chaos gremlin or goblin, whatever they were calling her, that she can embrace the chaos and use it to reach her goals, I think is really awesome. So to have her be, the stick up her butt and then also the chaos, I thought was very interesting.
As much as I would love to have seen her in a Starfleet uniform, I'm just going to say when she was wearing the little wigs and stuff, she was looking hot.
Yeah.
Just going to say it. Kyle, your thoughts on Rachel Garrett?
I think it was very interesting to throw this character in there, and especially now that we realize the impact Georgiou has on the character, because I mean, they played it up a lot in this that Georgiou is really kind of the one that kind of made her look at things a little differently than just the rigid Starfleet way, or at least made her accept a part of herself. And so I think it was brilliant casting. The actress who played her was one of the highlights of this, and having her character in there, I think added for some interesting twists. And it was the one thing that made it feel like Trek. Mm-hmm. And I think that was important.
Her inclusion into Section 31, I find fascinating because she becomes a Starfleet captain eventually, and she's wearing those monster maroon outfits, which I love, how did she get into the Section 31? What happened there? That is the only question I care about after watching this movie. Really, is her past, and a part of me was like, would I like to see more of this younger version doing Section 31 stuff or whatever? Maybe, I don't know, but it was the best part for me regarding that. I love the actress that played her too. So yeah.
One possibility is getting a fast track to captain. Because remember, she said in the movie that she was like, I'm going to be a captain as she's, in the garbage scow. And it may be, as I think about, say, like in schools, like a principal, they usually start as a teacher. You learn all the roles that you have to be. And so maybe she's like, I'm going to investigate what there is in Starfleet and get me the fastest track to being a captain. And I bet Section 31 is something that'll get you fast tracked, because at the end, she's already a lieutenant commander, right? Where she was a lieutenant. So she moved up real quick after that one mission.
Definitely. Okay, the next topic I want to talk about, guys, is Section 31 ending explained. The final scene connects TNG's darkest story. Star Trek Section 1 ends with a sequel setup that draws from Next Generation's dark past. And this is from denofgeek.com. Turkana 4 in Section 31's next mission. Jamie Lee Curtis appears as Control, a cybernetically enhanced director of Section 31. By the way, I don't know if you guys notice, but in the beginning of the film, when they're getting the Mission Impossible, mission statement, that is Jamie Lee Curtis's voice, by the way, doing it. So I don't know if you guys caught that. The team celebrations get interrupted by a holograph message from their handler, portrayed by Jamie Lee Curtis. Question: has anyone been to Turkana 4? She asks. To which all of the characters respond with self-satisfied grin, and all of the viewers roll their eyes and exhale in exasperation. Turkana 4 is the home of Tasha Yar, the ill-fated security officer of the Next Generation. Yar famously died in the first season of TNG, which means that we only learned a few things about her planet and didn't get much more information from her sister Ishara Yar, who appeared in season 4's Legacy. However, there's one phrase that gets used often when describing this place, unfortunately, is rape gangs. Honestly, it's a good thing that most of Star Trek forgot about the planet, as the above phrase suggests. Turkana 4 was tone-deaf attempt to build pathos for Tasha, explaining her toughness as an extension of her extremely dangerous upbringing on a world threatened by these gangs. Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry based Yar on Vasquez from Aliens, and Legacy drew inspiration from John Carpenter movie Escape from New York, which gives us an idea of the dystopias they had in mind when thinking about Turkana 4. Given the Section 31 producers have already excavated the titular Black Ops organization in the Mirror Universe, they needed a new source of ill-fitting edginess for their extreme approach to Star Trek. So, guys, I want to get your thoughts on, first of all, Jamie Lee Curtis and them getting another mission here. Not to mention Philippa Georgiou wearing that really cool disco ball outfit. Amy, your thoughts?
Okay. Again, with the timeline and this Control, and I'm sorry, I'm not happy that it's Jamie Lee Curtis. I mean, I love her, but
stunt casting, is that why?
There's no point to having her be Control. And Control we have an entire season of Discovery destroying Control? Like, that's sort of my concern. Like, Control was an AI, and now it's a person, and she's got cybernetics. I don't know. I did not like this whole Control thing. I love Jamie Lee Curtis, but I'm like, what is she doing here? There's no connection. That was not a good part of the movie for me at all.
What say you, Kyle?
Well, there's a connection here because I think her and Michelle Yeoh started up a friendship when they were doing the Oscar stuff together, and I think she did it to help her friend out. And hey, let's get into Star Trek a little bit here. But I agree with you as far as the canon of it, Amy. It's kind of backwards thinking. I'm thinking for a minute there, I'm thinking, what is she not? And again, this is where timeline confusion kind of came in. What is she Borg? What's going on there?
Yes.
And the way they had her set up. I mean, I can get maybe the Control aspect of it is they're not referring to the same Control that was in Discovery, but it sure makes it confusing, even if it wasn't. And it was a stunt casting. It's the idea of the stunt casting in this aspect was, let's throw Jamie Lee Curtis in there to maybe see if we can't spice up enough people's interest that they want to see more. And I think that's why it's stunt casting. So yeah, it was, to me, the point, it smells of it's a desperation move to say, hey, if we can get more Section 31 by doing this stunt casting, maybe we can get more made.
Okay, this can definitely be chalked up as stunt casting. However, and of course, yes. How did we get that starry surprise cameo? Well, of course, Jamie Lee Curtis and Michelle Yeoh both won Oscars for Everything Everywhere at Once, and they've, of course, become fast friends. But let me ask you this, guys. If this movie was a lot better, it would have been much better, I think, fitting in, to be honest with you guys. Because Jamie Lee Curtis is awesome. She is a fan favorite. She has, of course, cornered the market in, horror, but she's done a bunch of other things. She does comedy very well. She's a beloved actress, and she's one of those people that is real. I remember when she did that. I don't know if you remember, she did that famous photo shoot for a magazine where she didn't put on any makeup. She was kind of like in her underwear, and she wanted to kind of show people what it was like just to be natural, be normal. But I feel that this would have been better received if the movie was better and we got something, and it was executed just overall, and it was just done better. And maybe if she was in a Starfleet uniform, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we would have looked at it better, but we love seeing them together. And I'm sure obviously this was stunt casting, but so. Okay, let's get into our last topic here, guys. Section 31. How did this movie handle the shadowy side of Federation, aka Section 31? Do you want to see more? Amy.
Okay. I think they did handle it well. I liked that they had that boundary of we are going to operate outside of Federation space. So that makes a separation where I'm almost okay in, because I like you. I'm a utopian girl. I'm a TNG. Everything's fine. We don't need Section 31. But I guess if we have to, because of the boundary it set, I do like it. I like seeing Philippa Georgiou's growth, especially when the last fight, when she's fighting with San, and she's just basically trying, and she gives him that big hug. That was my favorite scene of the movie. And she's like, love has changed me, basically. That to me is the point of the movie, that there are no nice tyrants. There's no, which is very fitting for what we are going through politically, to recognize. But she's changed. She's still snarky, but she at least knows that she was a very, very, very bad person. So I like that for her character. Again, loved Rachel Garrett. And I would like to see more. But I'm always going to say yes to more Star Trek. So
Kyle, what say you?
It didn't handle anything Star Trek. That's the problem. This wasn't the underbelly, the Section 31, the underbelly. Yes, okay, they have this little blurb at the thing. Oh, they're operating outside of a treaty and all that kind of stuff. It has to at least feel a little bit like Star Trek, and it didn't. And so, for me, how can you say it handled the underbelly of Star Trek well when it doesn't even feel like Star Trek? But on the flip side of this, do I want more Section 31? I don't know if it's Section 31 or if I want more of some of these characters. I want more Georgiou. I want more of a couple of these other characters because I think they were interesting. I think they killed off some of the characters much too quickly in the beginning of this, too. That could have been much more interesting. I think it was also, and I'm going to throw this out there, it was one of the weakest excuses to bring an actor back at the end of this when it was like, oh, the wife is now controlling this. I'm like, really? Come on. That's what we're doing here? And it's a shame because I think some of the actors put in some really good performances in this, but they didn't handle the dark side. This was not the dark side of Trek. This was a Terran Empire story. This was wrapping up Georgiou's story. This wasn't about Section 31. This was about Georgiou.
That's true.
So, yeah, no, they didn't handle it at all. If they get a chance to do more, maybe they do something with it, but they're not going to get a chance to do more. I think we know that. And again, that's a shame because I hope there's a few of these characters. I hope they find a way to work into something. And one of the biggest missed things was you want to talk about the change in Georgiou, you still have to reference things that happened in Discovery with her and Michael Burnham. If you're going to have that, I mean, I understand it was interesting to see some more of her Terran Empire side, but if you're talking about the character development of Georgiou, you've got to address that too. This movie just dropped the ball.
So I have a picture here on the slideshow where it's a promotional picture. It says spelled out Section 31. And it has all the cast in the letters of section, and then there's a bigger picture of Michelle Yeoh as her character. And here is a cast photo put together of Section 31 cast here. I want to ask you guys this before I give my thoughts on whether I want to see more Section 31 or not. What if this screams Star Trek to you?
It screams Farscape to me. I'm going to be honest with you. That's how the look of it.
There's a lot of black leather in there. It's almost like a Marvel Universe cast-off series as well. None of this screams Star Trek. None of it. I will argue this with anybody. Amy, does this say Star Trek to you? Not if this came up to you and you didn't know anything about it, hadn't seen it, does this say Star Trek to you?
Yeah, no. The only reason why I know it's Star Trek is because I know who the aliens are, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, okay. So I asked, did this movie handle the shadowy side of Section? No, this failed miserably, in my opinion. And I'm going to go back to a Star Trek movie that a lot of people still kind of panned and gets a lot of crap, and I feel handled it much better, and that's Star Trek Into Darkness. Star Trek Into Darkness handled Section 31 much better. You had Peter Weller as a shadowy Federation-dressed Section 31 member, and he was evil as F, guys. And we saw that. That was handled so much better. That had people in uniforms showcasing Star Trek uniforms, Star Trek ships, evil side of Star Trek Section 31. I never want to see Philippa Georgiou attached to Section 31. She doesn't belong to Section 31. I'm sorry. That was shoehorned in to try to let's show the dark side of Starfleet, and let's bring this character in that has an evil side to her. She'll fit right in. No, I don't want to see her. I don't mind seeing her back in Star Trek, but I don't want to see her in Section 31. She does not belong in any Star Trek. She doesn't belong with Federation at all. Federation is Section 31, right? Right? You know, I don't know. It was a mismatch from the beginning. I'm sorry, Kyle.
There was a version of Section 31 that they even hinted at possibly setting up in Discovery, where it would have brought the one character back who was the Klingon turned human. I can't think of his name right now. Was Burnham's love interest, kind of the Burnham's love interest in season.
Yeah,
Ash or something.
Ash Tyler.
Yeah,
Ash Tyler, where he gets recruited into Section 31. And the thought process was if Georgiou would have went back to that time frame, she would have been one of the founders of Section 31. That would have worked so much more for me if you were going to tie Georgiou into it, because then you've got somebody who is going to teach the Federation what it needs to do when it has to do black ops and do things that are outside of the fringe instead of what they did here. That would have made much more sense to me. I could have rolled with that a little bit better. But what they did with this was just let's do a Marvel movie with so Michelle Yeoh can do something with her.
Amy, was this what you wanted from a Section 31 movie, or long trek?
Yeah, I didn't know what I wanted. I wanted more Georgiou. I'm glad it wasn't so heavy on the Terran Empire. I did want a more connective tissue with Discovery. But I know that wouldn't have played well for people who don't watch Star Trek. And I know that this was made for non-Trekkies. So you've got to give them that. They succeeded. It's not
that's
Trekkies.
the problem. You're making Star Trek for non-Trek.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't work like that. That's like, I'm making a Marvel film for DC fans. It's not true. It doesn't work that way.
I almost kind of wanted to see the Terran Empire instead of what they called Section 31 here. I mean, I don't know. But anyway, let's go ahead and wrap things up, guys. I want to get your final thoughts as well. All right, this is Section 31, episode 208 of Union Federation, giving our spoiler review and discussion here on the movie. Just a little tease. Next episodes of Union Federation, we're going to do a 10-episode limited series returning to the Orville and discussing the wonderful crew members. And we're going to be highlighting a couple episodes for each of these. And we're also going to have a final episode. We're going to talk about all the guest stars and admirals and Star Trek alumni that was in Orville. We're going to have a lot of fun discussing that. But let's go ahead and give our final thoughts on Section 31. Kyle, let's start with you.
Michelle Yeoh, you deserved better. The Emperor Georgiou is probably one of my favorite characters of modern Trek, and this current and Michelle Yeoh deserves every accolade she gets. She's put her time in. She's done this. This was just, again, this feels like it's something done. She won the Oscar. We needed to do something with her. We have this. We need to do something with her. It's not her fault. I mean, I'm not even going to put all the blame on the writers or anything like that. I think there's a lot of things that just went sideways with this project. And it's a shame because I think the people who worked on it really truly had a love for what they did with it. You saw that in the cast interviews. You've seen that on the press junkets for this. And again, there are characters I would like to know more about from Section 31. And there's some characters I enjoyed, but this script was a mess. Was it a TV show that was written into a movie? Was it meant to be a 2-hour pilot? What was it supposed to be? What direction did they want to take this show? I think there was way too many hands in the pot here from corporate and business end to creative end. And I think it just turned what could have been something fun, at least fun, and just turned it sideways to the point where there's some aspects of this that are fun, but it's too confusing. It doesn't know what it wants to be. And like Kevin said earlier, and you guys said earlier, they were trying to make Star Trek for non-Trekkies. No. Sometimes the wording "stay in your lane" is the best advice you can get. If you're making Star Trek, make Star Trek. Keep the heart of Star Trek. Even if you're going to the dark side of the underside of Trek, you can still keep the heart of it. And I'll give you the perfect example. And then Kevin, I think you'll agree with this. Star Wars did this recently with the Andor show. We saw the darker side of Star Wars, but it still felt like Star Wars. I mean, it's not. It's doable. They could have done it, and they just got lazy and we didn't do it, or they thought they were going to be smart and witty, smart and creative, and it just backfired on them.
Kyle, you mentioned a lot of cooks in the kitchen here, and I'm looking. There's 15 people that have an executive producer or producer title for this movie.
Wow.
And it reminds me of I remember Beyonce was getting a lot of crap, probably deservedly, because she had 25 writers for songs, and it's one of those too many cooks in the kitchen. Anyway, let's get your final thoughts here. Counselor Amy, your thoughts.
Oh boy. Okay. Final thoughts on this movie. I feel like being too positive is not good. Being too negative is not good. We have a good mix in our podcast, when we podcast together. So there's definitely a lot to complain about. When my first watch through, I was lost as all get out. I was not confused as to, am I watching a video game? Am I watching, all these different movies that got thrown in there? Why are they separating us into parts? Why am I so confused? Again, we talk about this a lot. The lighting, there was sometimes I'm like, where are they? They're on a dead planet. They're on this garbage scow. I couldn't see any of the ships. I didn't know what was really going on with.
That was one of my complaints for Discovery. Turn on some damn lights.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. And the fighting was good, but it was very choppy. And then people got killed, but then weren't, and regenerated, and the controlling with the little guy Fuzz. And it was a lot thrown at you. And you're like, well, let's just throw everything and see what sticks. So I'm going through taking stuff off the wall and trying to figure out where is the Trek in this. Again, I feel like Georgiou's story of that redemption of, can you make up for what you did? Is it easier for her now that she's in a different universe? Maybe. Is that something that you can be redeemed for? Can you forgive yourself for doing that? These are the questions that I like when I watch Star Trek. And with some time of figuring out what it is, I do get to ask myself these questions in the story. So it's left me a lot to think about. So I appreciate it for that. But yeah, there's a lot of hot mess going on with it.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Right? It's hard to start.
I famously said on Union Federation that I will watch all Trek at least once.
Mm-hmm.
And I failed to do that a couple times with some stuff. And I will only be watching this. Well, I've watched it twice, so I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to return to this. I'm not. It's not a rewatchable for me. I can say that the majority of the Star Trek movies that came out in theaters. Let's see a Star Trek movie come in theaters, guys.
Mm-hmm.
They've been on the rewatchable side for me, and of course, the TV series. But I just feel like it's almost felt like an offshoot of Discovery, to be honest with you. And Discovery is, we've been divided on it, and for me, it's been a tough watch as a series. And I feel like they've kind of forgotten what Star Trek is to a certain degree. There's a lot of good Star Trek moments in Discovery, but when you do an offshoot of that show of a character like Georgiou, who Michelle Yeoh is really good at that character. Mm-hmm. I just feel like, and like we touched on, they didn't go out to try to make a bad movie. I think that they, had an idea with this, and everyone behind it saying, yeah, that sounds really good. That sounds fun. And by the way, Michelle Yeoh is one of the producers on this. She's given one of the producing credits. So obviously, I guess she had some input on this, unless it's just an extra, producer's fee that she gets out of it. I don't know how much control that she has, though. But unfortunately, it was not executed well, and it lost itself, and it lost me. You with Star Trek, you got to let us know you're in Star Trek. You got to show certain imagery. You can't just name names. You can't just have some aliens and saying, oh, they're the same as this one and blah, blah, blah. You really have to kind of showcase, especially this Section 31 that was derived from Starfleet. And I felt that they missed a golden opportunity here to kind of showcase the beginning of Section 31. I don't think we've really gotten that, really. And I think back to when we first learned about Section 31 in Deep Space Nine, it was just like, holy crap, these guys, man, don't want to mess with them. And then in Star Trek Into Darkness, we got a reminder of how sinister they can be and that they need to be policed as well, kind of like an internal affairs situation, so I don't know. It's a disappointment, and I see the reviews. I see you guys. I get you. And I saw a couple people, a couple Facebook friends saying they liked it and stuff, but I saw a lot that just slam the crap out of this, saying don't waste your time, blah blah blah. And I get that as well, but I just really was hoping more from this, and I hope they learn from this. To be honest with you. And it's sad that we're not going to probably get a sequel of this. I don't know if we're going to be disappointed about that or not. Kyle.
One of the biggest things of Section 31, anytime we've seen it, has always been that Black Delta. The only time you see it is in a holographic version in a communicate.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a little thing. That one thing alone would have probably, if you would have seen somebody pull out a Black Delta, that there's a Star Trek connection right there. I mean, yeah. It was laziness. It was really laziness.
Yeah. All right, guys. This is the Union Federation here, of course, on the Fandom Podcast Network, and also BQN. Amy, first of all, thank you so much for coming on. It was good to see you again. Let us know what's going on at the BQN and how we can find you.
All right. Well, you can find me. I am on Blue Sky at Counselor Amy. So that's where you can find me. Also, find the network on Blue Sky at BQN Podcasts. And I am co-hosting All Good Things. And we've got the View Screen, our YouTube show that's going to be coming up in February. So look for that. It's exciting. And
what's the concept of that show? Can you let us know what the View Screen is?
Absolutely. Yeah, that is your morning talk show, but Trek inspired. So Sunday mornings, get your coffee. Well, it's 5 p.m. over in the UK, but we have guests
tea time
on.
for them. So
yeah, exactly. So we have different guests on, and it's just like a talk show. Okay. So yeah. And we've got our Trexperts quiz going on a lot there. Those are really fun to test your knowledge and to see how many smart people there are out there. That's going. We have non-Trek shows, Bargain Bin Gamer and Cinema Z. Talks about Bargain Bin is video games, and they're just going through all the video games and reviewing them. And Cinema Z is a movie podcast. So we've got lots of different things going on. Oh, we have History with the Zalogis, just a little snippet, a little podcast, little bite-sized piece of history. So that's really fun too. So yeah.
Awesome. And you guys have your Facebook listener group, the BQN Collective as well. And you're on Instagram. So yeah.
Yeah, we're Meta's. I'm not happy with Meta. So I'm focusing on Blue Sky.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Kyle, where can we find you?
You can find me all over the place. Actually, you can find me on Facebook, Kyle Wagner. You can, of course, find me all over the group pages for the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter at AKyleW. You can find me on Blue Sky at AKyleW. You can find me on Instagram and Threads at AKyleFandom, and you can find me on Discord at AKyleW as well.
Awesome. And of course, the Fandom Podcast Network, if you're listening to this, make sure you check out our YouTube channel. Give us a subscribe, a like, a share, comment as well. Appreciate that. And so make sure, and we're also on Blue Sky as well. You can find me. My name is Kevin. You can find me on Instagram, X, Threads, Discord, and Letterboxd at Spartan_Phoenix, and on Blue Sky at Spartan Phoenix. So make sure you do that. And please give us a review on any of your podcast providers. We appreciate that. And also give us some love over on TeePublic, guys. We have a lot of great stuff on TeePublic. Just search for Fandom Podcast Network. You'll find, of course, Union Federation. I'm wearing my Union Federation t-shirt right now. But we have...
You notice it's a red shirt too for the Union Federation shirt on that picture.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. We got a picture of all this stuff. You can get mugs and caps and stuff like that, and we get a little kickback, guys, for any purchases up there to help keep the Union Federation starship running on the dilithium, very expensive dilithium crystals. They're almost as expensive as eggs nowadays. So just let you know. Amy, thank you so much for joining us again here on Section 31 discussion and on Union Federation. Looking forward to talking some Orville with you.
Oh, so looking forward to our next little mini series, because we got to get back to Orville.
Yeah, definitely. Kyle, thank you, sir. As always, thanks for helping me maneuver this ship around Section 31.
Yeah, always. And I'm going to go do some real Black Ops work now.
I'm afraid to ask. All right, guys. Again, thank you very much for joining us here on the Fandom Podcast Network's Union Federation podcast. Live long and prosper. And we are, without a doubt, the weirdest ship in the fleet. We'll see you guys next time.